That grocery receipt in your hand contains a hidden surcharge. Part of the price you pay for basic goods is a silent contribution to global conflicts, one that bypasses your ballot box and your paycheck entirely. Following September 11th, the United States launched two massive, simultaneous wars across the Middle East. Historically, a mobilization of that scale required an emergency war tax to stay solvent, but the government never asked for one. This chart shows the United States federal debt between 2001 and 2008. Without a tax increase to pay for the conflicts, the government charged the entire effort to a national credit card, driving the total from $5 trillion to over $10 trillion in just 7 years. There were no ration lines at grocery stores and no conscription notices arriving at your door. This absence of visible sacrifice makes the entire enterprise feel deceptively avoidable, almost frictionless. But a multi-trillion-dollar bill never actually disappears. It simply gets restructured and hidden deep in the balance sheet. If the politicians and the wealthy aren't footing the bill, somebody else is. To understand where the money actually comes from, we have to look back at medieval Europe. Back then, war finance was brutally transparent. If a king wanted to wage a military campaign, he extracted wealth immediately by seizing physical assets or levying heavy direct taxes. This financial pain was instant and personal. Because the extraction was so visible, it triggered immediate resistance. Peasant revolts and merchant strikes acted as natural circuit breakers, putting a hard ceiling on how much war any ruler could sustain. Everything changed in 1694 when the Bank of England pioneered the concept of modern sovereign debt. Instead of extracting wealth today, governments could issue long-term bonds. They were borrowing against the future productivity of the nation and spreading the pain across decades. By the time of the First and Second World Wars, this borrowing model scaled to its absolute limit. The sheer expense of global conflict required governments to find a way to make mass debt generation palatable to the average person. Governments explicitly repackaged this debt as a patriotic product. They marketed war savings bonds not as a desperate measure to cover deficits, but as an honorable investment in the country's survival. But borrowing has a ceiling. When governments can no longer raise enough through taxes or borrow cheaply enough to cover the gap, they reach for a third mechanism, one that requires no vote and no public debate. This third lever is the expansion of the money supply. By printing more currency, the state bypasses the traditional legislative process entirely. Inflation is a hidden tax. Injecting new currency dilutes your savings. After World War II, the U.S. faced a 110% GDP debt burden. Instead of raising taxes, the government used financial repression, keeping interest rates low while inflation ran. They repaid it using cheaper, diluted dollars. The middle class absorbs the cost of this dilution. Anyone relying on a wage, a pension, or cash savings feels the extraction through rising prices at the gas pump and the grocery store. Meanwhile, those who hold hard assets like real estate or equities watch their portfolios inflate in value right alongside the broader price level. Their wealth is naturally insulated from the erosion. At the same time, defense contractors receive procurement contracts worth hundreds of billions of dollars. These companies don't absorb the cost of war. They bill for it, turning geopolitical conflict into a consistent revenue cycle. This mechanism turns inflation into a targeted extraction. The state dilutes the currency to manage its own liabilities, effectively subsidizing its military spending through the slow erosion of the public's purchasing power. This invisible extraction serves as the underlying financial model for most modern global states. Germany provided the most extreme proof of its architecture in the 1920s. To manage its war debts, the state printed notes in denominations as high as 1 trillion marks, effectively wiping out the savings of its entire middle class. The United Kingdom and Japan have utilized similar architectures, managing decades of debt through currency devaluation and zero-interest policies that move wealth from savers to borrowers on a generational scale. The next frontier of this system is already in development. Central bank digital currencies and the rise of modern monetary theory aim to give governments even more real-time control over the money supply. While the rulers and the technology change, the arithmetic remains consistent. Debt is issued, currency is diluted, and the cost is borne by those who hold wages and savings. The war surcharge isn't missing, it is simply buried in your grocery and energy bills. Welcome to Wealth Engines. History as the answers. I'll show you where to